Before we begin this journey through privilege, perception, and hidden identity, I invite you to consider how often we judge others based solely on appearances. This story reminds us that dignity exists beyond material possessions, and that assumptions can blind us to the humanity we share. If this message resonates with you, share it with someone who needs this reminder about looking beyond the surface. The harsh fluorescent lights of Westlake Academy's computer lab cast an unforgiving glow over Marcus Johnson's worn laptop. The scratches along its cover told stories of years of faithful service, a stark contrast to the gleaming devices surrounding him in this elite private school. At 16, Marcus navigated the hallways of Westlake as an outsider. Here, wealth wasn't just displayed. It was a foundation of identity. Designer clothes, luxury cars in the student parking lot, and cutting-edge technology weren't status symbols. They were baseline expectations. Is that thing from a museum? Blake Harrison's voice deliberately carried across the lab. I didn't know laptops could survive that long, without life support. Laughter rippled through his circle of friends. Marcus kept his eyes fixed on his screen, his shoulders tensing slightly. The only visible sign that the words had landed. 3 weeks at Westlake had taught him that engagement only fueled their fire. Ms. Chun, the computer science teacher, glanced up from her desk. Let's focus on our coding projects, please. They're due by the end of class. What Blake and his friends didn't notice was that Marcus had completed the JavaScript assignment 20 minutes into the period, enhancing it with elegant functions that weren't part of the requirements. Coding had been a sanctuary since age 9, when his father first opened that world to him on this very laptop. Better save your work before that dinosaur crashes, Blake called out, drawing another wave of laughter. This time, Marcus looked up, his dark eyes meeting Blake's. He didn't speak, just held the gaze long enough for Blake to shift uncomfortably before returning to his work. Beside him, Zoe Martinez sighed. Just ignore them, she whispered. Blake's family owns half the real estate downtown. He thinks that gives him the right to be the school's unofficial judge of everything. I'm used to it, Marcus replied quietly. And he was. Before Westlake, Marcus had attended public school in South Chicago. His father had insisted on it, wanted his son to grow up grounded in the real world rather than isolated in privilege. But after an incident that made his father fear for Marcus's safety, they compromised on Westlake Academy. Prestigious enough to provide excellent education, but far enough from their home that no one would connect Marcus to his father's empire. Rashid Johnson wasn't just another tech executive. As the founder and CEO of Quantum Nexus Technologies, he stood among the few black billionaires in America, having built his company from a small startup in a garage to a global technology powerhouse worth over $20 billion. His revolutionary advancements in quantum computing had transformed industries, but he remained fiercely protective of his private life, especially when it came to his son. Mr. Johnson, since you finished early, perhaps you could help some of your classmates? Ms. Chen's voice pulled Marcus from his thoughts. Before he could respond, Blake snorted. Him? Help us? With that ancient laptop? Ms. Chen's expression hardened. Blake, that's enough. Not everyone needs the latest technology to understand how it works. In fact, it's okay, Marcus interrupted. Standing up, I'd be happy to help. He moved toward Aisha, who had raised her hand, but Blake wasn't finished. Must be nice getting charity tech from the school, Blake muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. My dad says affirmative action is getting out of control. The room fell silent. Ms. Chen's face flushed with righteous anger. Blake Harrison, to the principal's office. Now! As Blake gathered his things, smirking without remorse, Marcus felt a familiar constellation of emotions. The burn of humiliation, the simmering anger, and beneath it all, a weariness that came from navigating these waters his entire life. Later that afternoon, Marcus sat alone at lunch, picking at his food while scrolling through messages on his phone. Dad, how's your day going, son? Marcus, same as yesterday. Rich kids being rich kids. Dad, remember what we talked about. Their perception is their limitation, not yours. Marcus, I know. Still gets old, though. Dad, we still on for dinner tonight? Got something important to discuss. Marcus, yeah, everything okay? Dad, all good. Just some news about the Foundation Gala. See you at 7. Marcus put his phone away as Zoe dropped her tray across from him. Mind if I join? She asked, already sitting down. Free country, he replied with a small smile. Zoe took a bite of her salad. Don't let Blake get to you. His entire personality is his family's bank account. I'm not worried about Blake, Marcus said. That coding you did in class was impressive, Zoe continued. Miss Chin showed me after you left. Where'd you learn to code like that? Marcus shrugged. My dad taught me. He's in tech. Cool. My mom's a software engineer too. Not exactly the glamorous career at the school where everyone's parent is either a surgeon, lawyer, or owns something important. She rolled her eyes. Before Marcus could respond, Blake appeared with his friends Tyler and Connor flanking him like bodyguards. Well, if it isn't Westlake's charity case and the scholarship girl, Blake said, placing his hands on their table. Match made in financial aid heaven. Zoe rolled her eyes. Didn't you embarrass yourself enough in computer class, Blake? Actually, Blake continued, ignoring her, we were wondering if you'd like to join the tech club, Marcus. We could use someone to, clean up after meetings. His friend snickered on cue. Marcus looked at Blake steadily. I appreciate the offer, but I'm already starting my own club. This caught Blake off guard. What club? Quantum Computing Research Group, Marcus said casually. Ms. Chin approved it yesterday. Blake scoffed. Quantum computing? With that faucet you call laptop? Good luck with that. Thanks, Marcus replied. I'll need it. Quantum entanglement is challenging even with the best equipment. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. As students began clearing their tables, Blake leaned closer. Listen, charity case. I don't know what game you're playing, but Westlake has a certain standard. People like you. People like me? Marcus stood slowly, meeting Blake's gaze. You know exactly what I mean, Blake said, his voice lower now. You don't belong here. As Blake walked away, Zoe touched Marcus's arm. He's not worth it. Marcus nodded, but the words echoed in his mind through his remaining classes. When the final bell rang, he found himself walking not toward the bus stop, but toward the parking lot where a modest Honda Civic was waiting, his father's personal car, not the luxury vehicles he could easily afford. As Marcus slid into the passenger seat, Rashid Johnson studied his son's face. Rough day? Nothing new, Marcus replied, buckling his seatbelt. Rashid nodded thoughtfully. Maybe it's time for a change. What kind of change? Rashid pulled out of the parking lot, his hand steady on the wheel. I've been thinking about this for a while. The Foundation Gala is coming up next month. The one you host every year for tech scholarships? Marcus asked. Yes. This year, I'm considering making it more personal. Marcus turned to his father, understanding dawning on his face. You want to bring me? Not just bring you, Rashid said, his voice quiet but firm. Introduce you, properly, as my son and the future of Quantum Nexus. Marcus stared out the window, watching the manicured lawns of the school disappear behind them. For years, his father had kept him out of the spotlight, wanting him to have a normal childhood away from the pressures of their wealth and his father's fame in the tech world. What changed your mind? Marcus finally asked. Rashid was silent for a moment before answering. You're not a child anymore, Marcus. And maybe I've been protecting you for the wrong reasons. Hiding who you are isn't teaching you to be humble. It's just teaching you to make yourself smaller for other people's comfort. The words hung between them as they drove toward home, not the modest apartment near the school where they stayed during the week, but their actual home, a restored historic mansion overlooking Lake Michigan where Rashid's most advanced work happened in a state-of-the-art lab built beneath the property. So what exactly are you suggesting? Marcus asked as they pulled into the long driveway hidden from the street by a dense row of trees. Rashid smiled for the first time since picking up his son. I'm suggesting we stop pretending. Starting tomorrow. The next morning dawned with a sense of anticipation. As Marcus readied himself for school, he found his father in the kitchen, holding a sleek black box. I was going to wait until after the gala announcement, Rashid said, sliding the box across the counter. But I think today is the right time. Marcus opened it to reveal a cutting-edge laptop, not yet available to the public, with a distinctive Quantum Nexus logo embossed on its surface. It was a QNX1, his father's company's newest development. "This isn't just for show," Rashid explained as Marcus lifted it reverently. "It has a direct, secure connection to our quantum processors, the same system the Department of Defense is licensing from us." Marcus's eyes widened. "Are you serious? This isn't even on the market yet." "No, it's not," Rashid smiled. "Only our top engineers and a few government officials have them. And now you..." Instead of their usual morning routine, taking a Honda to the modest apartment near school, then having Marcus take the bus to maintain their cover, Rashid made a different suggestion. "Today, I think I'll drive you directly to school, in the Aston Martin." Marcus looked up sharply. "Are you sure?" "It's time, son." 40 minutes later, heads turned as the sleek black Aston Martin DB-12 pulled into Westlake Academy's circular driveway. Students froze mid-conversation. Phones raised to capture the unexpected arrival. When Marcus stepped out, his new QN X1 laptop bag slung over his shoulder, whispers spread across the courtyard. Rashid Johnson emerged from the driver's side, his tall frame commanding attention in a perfectly tailored suit, unlike his usual appearance when visiting the school, deliberately understated in casual clothes. Today he looked every bit the tech mogul worth billions. "Have a good day, son," he said, loud enough for nearby students to hear. "I've arranged for the car to pick you up after your club meeting. We have that board dinner tonight." Marcus nodded, fighting to keep his expression neutral despite the stares. "Thanks, Dad. Don't forget you promised to review my quantum algorithm project tonight." "Wouldn't miss it," Rashid replied with a wink before driving away. As Marcus walked toward the entrance, he spotted Blake and his friends staring open-mouthed. For once, Blake Harrison was speechless. The morning passed in a blur of whispers and stares. By lunchtime, the school was buzzing with speculation. When Marcus entered the cafeteria, he found Zoe waiting at their usual table, her expression a mix of curiosity and amusement. "So," she said as he sat down, "were you planning to mention that your dad is Rashid Johnson?" "The Rashid Johnson." Marcus shrugged. It didn't seem relevant. "Not relevant?" Zoe laughed. "Marcus, your father revolutionized quantum computing. His technology is what's making true AI possible. He's the reason half these rich kids' parents have stock portfolios worth anything. He's also just my dad," Marcus replied simply. "The same dad who taught me to code on that old laptop everyone's been laughing at." Zoe shook her head in disbelief. "You've been letting Blake and his cronies make fun of you for weeks, when your father is literally one of the richest men in the country." "Money doesn't shield you from racism, Zoe. Sometimes it just changes how it looks." Before she could respond, Principal Whitman appeared at their table, his expression a careful balance of authority and deference. "Marcus, if I could have a word?" "In my office, please." Marcus followed the principal to the crowded cafeteria, aware of the stairs tracking his movement. In the hallway, they encountered Blake and his friends, who flattened themselves against the wall as if Marcus were suddenly radioactive. Principal Whitman's office was a testament to Westlake's prestige. Oak paneling framed diplomas and photographs of the principal with various celebrities and dignitaries who had donated to the school. He gestured for Marcus to take a seat. "I received a rather interesting call this morning," Principal Whitman began, folding his hands on the desk. "From your father's executive assistant. Apparently, Quantum Nexus is interested in establishing a significant scholarship fund at Westlake." Marcus nodded slowly. "My father believes in educational opportunity." "Indeed." The principal leaned forward. "The assistant also mentioned that Mr. Johnson would like to sponsor a state-of-the-art computer lab, specifically for your quantum computing club." "That sounds like him," Marcus replied, keeping his expression neutral despite the satisfaction he felt watching the principal squirm. "I must say, Marcus, we had no idea of your background when you enrolled. Your father's registration listed his occupation simply as technology consultant." "That's technically accurate," Marcus pointed out. Principal Whitman cleared his throat. "Yes, well, had we known, we would have certainly." "Treated me differently?" Marcus finished. That's exactly why he didn't tell you. The principal had the grace to look embarrassed. I understand. However, now that we're aware, we want to ensure your experience at Westlake is appropriate. My experience was very educational, Marcus said pointedly. After a moment of uncomfortable silence, the principal spoke again. I also want to apologize for any incidents that may have made you feel unwelcome. We pride ourselves on inclusion at Westlake. I'm sure you do, Marcus replied. Will that be all, Principal Whitman? I have class in 10 minutes. Of course. Oh, and please tell your father I'm looking forward to discussing the details of his generous offer. Marcus nodded and left the office, his thoughts turning computer class, where Blake Harrison would undoubtedly be waiting. The classroom fell silent when Marcus entered. Mischin gave him a small smile of encouragement as he took his seat and unpacked his new QN X1 laptop. Blake's usual corner was subdued, his friends avoiding eye contact. Today we'll be working on database queries, Ms. Chun announced. The exercise is on the shared drive. As students began working, Marcus felt someone approach. He looked up to see Blake standing awkwardly beside his desk, his usual confidence nowhere to be seen. Hey, Blake said, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. Can I talk to you for a second? Marcus gestured to the empty chair beside him. Blake sat down, his expensive watch catching the light. I wanted to say... Blake began, then stopped, clearly struggling. About yesterday, and, well, everything before that. I didn't know who you were. And that makes it okay? Marcus asked, his voice level. Blake had the decency to look ashamed. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. Would you be apologizing if my dad worked at Walmart instead of being a tech billionaire? The question hung between them. Blake's silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, Marcus said. Look, Blake, I don't need your apology. What I need is for you to understand that how you treat people, all people, matters, not because of who their parents might be, but because everyone deserves basic respect. Blake nodded slowly. I get it. Or, I'm trying to. That's a start, Marcus replied, turning back to his laptop. Your quantum computing club, Blake said hesitantly. Is it still open for new members? Marcus looked at him thoughtfully. The first meeting is tomorrow after school. It's open to anyone genuinely interested in learning. After class, Marcus found his father waiting by the Aston Martin instead of the driver he'd expected. Change of plans, Rashid explained as they drove away from school. The board dinner isn't until 8. I thought we might take a detour. They drove in comfortable silence until they reached the south side of Chicago, pulling up to a worn-looking community center with barred windows. Remember this place? Rashid asked. Marcus nodded. The STEM Center, where you taught your first programming classes. Before Quantum Nexus, before the patents and the government contracts, Rashid confirmed. This is where it all started. They walked inside, greeted by the familiar smell of old carpet and the sound of children's voices from the computer room. Ms. Washington, the center's director for over 20 years, rushed forward to embrace them both. My two favorite Johnsons, she exclaimed. Marcus, look at you, all grown up and handsome as your father. Children peeked out from a computer room, their curious eyes taking in the visitors. We brought something, Rashid said, gesturing to the car where his driver was unloading several boxes. The center's computers are due for an upgrade. Ms. Washington's eyes filled with tears. Rashid Johnson, you never forget where you came from, do you? How could I, he replied, his hand on Marcus's shoulder. Everything important started here. As they helped set up the new computers, Marcus worked alongside a young boy of about 10, his eager questions reminding Marcus of himself at that age. Are you really a billionaire? The boy asked innocently. Rashid laughed. On paper, maybe, but you know what's worth more than money? Knowledge. And purpose. That's the real wealth. Later, as they drove to board dinner, Marcus turned to his father. Thank you. For today. For the laptop? Rashid asked, though he knew that wasn't what Marcus meant. For reminding me who we are, where we came from. Rashid nodded, his eyes on the road ahead. Tomorrow at school will be different. People will see the name, the money, the company. But that's not what makes you who you are. I know, Marcus said. It's just strange, going from being invisible to suddenly being seen, but for reasons that have nothing to do with me. That's why the Foundation Gala is important, Rashid explained. It's not just about introducing you as my son. It's about showing the world what matters to us, what we stand for. As they pulled up to the exclusive restaurant where the board members waited, Marcus noticed Blake's father's car in the valet line. The connection hadn't occurred to him before. Harrison Properties was one of Quantum Nexus's biggest local investors. Dad, Marcus said suddenly. Blake Harrison. His father, Gerald Harrison. Rashid finished. Yes, he's on our board. Why? Marcus took a deep breath. I think I have an idea for the gala. Something that could make a real difference. Rashid listened as Marcus outlined his plan, a smile spreading across his face. That's ambitious, and exactly what the Foundation needs. As they entered the restaurant, Gerald Harrison approached immediately, his hand extended toward Rashid. Johnson, I just heard the most incredible thing from my son. Apparently, your boy has been attending Westlake incognito. Brilliant marketing move, keeping him under wraps until now. Rashid's expression cooled. It wasn't a marketing move, Gerald. It was a father protecting his son's privacy. Marcus stepped forward, extending his hand. Mr. Harrison, I'm Marcus Johnson. I believe you know my father. Gerald Harrison's smile faltered slightly as he took Marcus's hand. Of course. Blake has mentioned you. Just today, actually. I'm sure he has, Marcus replied evenly. I'm looking forward to seeing him at the Quantum Computing Club tomorrow. He seemed very interested. Quantum Computing Club? Gerald repeated, looking between Marcus and Rashid. My son's initiative at Westlake, Rashid explained, pride evident in his voice. Marcus has been developing a simplified model for teaching quantum principles to high school students. The Pentagon's Education Department has expressed interest in expanding it nationally. Gerald Harrison's expression shifted from confusion to calculated interest. Fascinating. Blake hasn't mentioned his involvement in such a prestigious project. It's new, Marcus said simply, and open to anyone willing to learn. As they moved toward the private dining room, Marcus caught his father's approving glance. The message was clear. This was just the beginning of reclaiming their narrative, of using their position to open doors rather than hiding behind them. The gala would be the true turning point, not just for Marcus and his father, but for kids like the ones at the community center who needed to see that success could look like them. The Quantum Nexus Foundation Gala was a technology event of the year, a gathering where innovation met philanthropy, where the brightest minds in tech showcased their visions for a more equitable digital future. For years, Rashid Johnson had hosted it without revealing much about his personal life, focusing instead on the Foundation's mission to bring technology education to underserved communities. This year would be different. In the 3 weeks since the revelation of Marcus's identity at Westlake Academy, life had transformed in ways both expected and surprising. The Quantum Computing Club had grown from a concept to a thriving group of 15 students, including, remarkably, Blake Harrison, whose initial awkwardness had gradually given way to genuine interest as Marcus patiently explained concepts that had once seemed impenetrable. The morning of the gala, Marcus stood in front of his bedroom mirror adjusting his bow tie, his mind replaying the conversation with his father from the night before. Are you nervous? Rashid had asked as they finalized the presentation for the gala. A little, Marcus admitted. It's one thing to be known at school. It's another to step onto the national stage. Rashid nodded understandingly. You don't have to do this. We can stick to the original plan. Introduce you simply as my son, nothing more. Marcus shook his head. No, the Foundation Scholarship Program was my idea. I should be the one to present it. Now, looking at his reflection, the tailored tuxedo, the confident posture his father taught him, the nervous energy in his eyes, Marcus took a deep breath. Tonight wasn't just about stepping out of the shadows. It was about creating new possibilities for kids who, like him, faced barriers that had nothing to do with their abilities and everything to do with perceptions. Downstairs, he found his father on the phone. pacing the living room with a focused intensity that had built quantum nexus from nothing. The demonstration needs to be flawless, Rashid was saying. The Secretary of Education will be there, along with half the tech CEOs in the country. Yes, I understand the quantum processor is still in beta, but Marcus's algorithm. He noticed his son and smiled. He just walked in. I'll call you back. Ending the call, Rashid approached Marcus, adjusting his son's bow tie slightly. Perfect. Ready to change some lives tonight. As ready as I'll ever be, Marcus replied. The gala venue, Chicago's Museum of Science and Industry, had been transformed for the evening. The central hall glowed with the distinctive blue lighting of Quantum Nexus, with holographic displays showcasing the Foundation's projects from around the world. Tech royalty mingled with educators, politicians, and community leaders, all drawn by Rashid Johnson's reputation for combining innovation with impact. Marcus moved through the crowd beside his father, observing how people responded to Rashid. With respect, curiosity, and the subtle deference accorded to those who possessed both wealth and vision, he noticed Gerald Harrison across the room, deep in conversation with a group of investors, Blake standing uncomfortably at his side in a tuxedo that looked too stiff for his teenage frame. When Blake spotted Marcus, he offered a hesitant wave. Marcus nodded in acknowledgement, then continued following his father toward a group that included the Secretary of Education and the CEOs of 3 major tech companies. Rashid, called out Elaine Carter, CEO of Future Tech Industries, the man of the hour. And who is this handsome young man? This, Rashid said with unmistakable pride, is my son, Marcus, the future of Quantum Nexus, and the reason we're all here tonight. The group turned their attention to Marcus, who extended his hand confidently. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm looking forward to sharing our vision for the Foundation's new direction. Your father tells me you developed a rather remarkable algorithm, said Thomas Chun, whose company had been trying to recruit Rashid for years. Something about making quantum computing concepts accessible to high school students. That's right, Marcus confirmed. We're calling it the Quantum Bridge Initiative. The goal is to demystify quantum computing for young people who might otherwise never be exposed to it. Secretary Williams nodded approvingly. We need more of this thinking in education policy. Technology access isn't just about hardware in classrooms. It's about making complex concepts approachable. As they continued discussing the initiative, Marcus noticed Blake standing alone near one of the displays, looking distinctly out of place. Excusing himself momentarily, Marcus approached his former tormentor. Not exactly your scene? Marcus asked. Blake looked relieved to see a familiar face. Not even close. My dad dragged me here to network. Said it would be good for my future. And is it? Blake shrugged. Maybe. I still don't understand half of what everyone's talking about, except when they're discussing your club's project. That part won't actually get, thanks to you. The sincerity in Blake's voice was unexpected. Before Marcus could respond, the lights dimmed slightly, and Rashid Johnson's voice came over the sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, it's time for the main presentation of the evening. Marcus made his way to the side of the stage as his father began addressing the audience. For 10 years, the Quantum Nexus Foundation has worked to bridge the digital divide, providing technology and education to communities that have been historically overlooked. Tonight, we're announcing an expansion of that mission, guided by a vision that is deeply personal to me. Rashid paused, scanning the crowd until his eyes found Marcus. Many of you know me as the founder of Quantum Nexus. Some know me as an investor, a CEO, or perhaps a competitor. This drew appreciative laughter. But my most important role, the one that gives purpose to everything else, is being a father. A large screen behind Rashid illuminated with a photograph of him and Marcus at the community center from years ago. Rashid teaching a young Marcus how to code on the very laptop that had been the source of mockery at Westlake. My son, Marcus Johnson. The spotlight found Marcus, who walked confidently onto the stage to join his father amid applause. What many don't know, Rashid continued, is that Marcus has been a quiet force behind some of our most impactful educational initiatives. And tonight, he's going to share the next chapter in that journey. Rashid stepped back, yielding the microphone to his son. Marcus took a deep breath. Looking out at the audience of the most powerful people in technology, his eyes briefly finding Blake and his father in the crowd. "Thank you," Marcus began, his voice steady. "For years, I've had the privilege of learning from my father, not just about technology, but about purpose, about using what you have to create opportunity for others." He advanced the slides, revealing images of the community center. This is where it all began for us. A small STEM center on Chicago's South Side, where my father taught coding classes even before Quantum Nexus existed. It's where I wrote my first line of code on a laptop that was already outdated then. The same laptop I've continued to use as a reminder of where we came from. The next slide showed Marcus with his old laptop at school, taken candidly by Zoe during a study session. Recently, I had the experience of being judged for that choice, of being seen as less capable, less worthy of respect, because I didn't display the usual markers of wealth and status. A murmur passed through the crowd. Marcus noticed Gerald Harrison shifting uncomfortably. That experience reinforced something my father has always taught me. That talent and potential exist everywhere, but opportunity doesn't. Tonight, we're launching the Quantum Bridge Scholarship Program, not just for the students who already have access to the best schools and the latest technology, but especially for those who don't. Marcus advanced to the next slide, showing the technical framework of the program. The initiative has 3 components. First, a nationwide scholarship for students from underserved communities with aptitude in STEM fields. Second, a curriculum that makes quantum computing concepts accessible to high school students regardless of their school's resources. And third, this is the part I'm most excited about, a mentorship network that pairs these students with leaders in the technology sector. He looked directly at the group of CEOs. Many of you in this room have already committed to participating in this network. For those who haven't, we'll be following up tomorrow. This drew appreciative laughter and a few raised glasses. But the most innovative aspect of this program isn't the technology or even the funding. It's the selection process. Marcus clicked to the next slide, revealing a complex algorithm. This is what I've been developing for the past year. A blind assessment tool that identifies aptitude and potential without the biases that typically influence who gets opportunities in tech. The Secretary of Education leaned forward, visibly intrigued. Using a series of problem-solving challenges delivered through an accessible online platform, this system can identify students with exceptional computational thinking skills, regardless of their prior exposure to technology, their socioeconomic background, or which school they attend. Marcus clicked to a demo of the platform, sleek, intuitive, and designed to run even on outdated hardware. We piloted this at 5 schools across Chicago, including both elite private institutions and underfunded public schools. The results were illuminating. The next slide showed anonymized data comparing performance across different schools. Students from schools with the fewest resources often demonstrated the most creative problem-solving approaches, precisely because they'd had to overcome more obstacles. As Marcus continued explaining the technical aspects of the program, he noticed Blake listening with unexpected intensity, nodding at points that resonated. When Marcus concluded his presentation and the applause began, Rashi returned to the stage, embracing his son with visible pride. "I couldn't have said it better myself," Rashid told the audience. And to demonstrate our commitment to this vision, Quantum Nexus is allocating $50 million to launch the program nationwide, with an additional $10 million specifically for Chicago schools. The announcement drew gasps followed by enthusiastic applause. As Marcus and Rashid moved through the crowd afterward, accepting congratulations and discussing implementation details with education officials, Marcus noticed Blake approaching hesitantly. "That was incredible," Blake said, genuine admiration in his voice. "The way you designed the assessment tool to work on any device, even old ones, that's genius." "It's necessary," Marcus corrected gently. "Not everyone has access to the latest technology." Blake nodded, a new understanding in his eyes. "I get that now. I really do." Gerald Harrison appeared behind his son, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. "Brilliant presentation, young man. Your father must be very proud." "I am," Rashi confirmed, joining them, "though I can only take partial credit. Marcus developed the core algorithm entirely on his own." Gerald's eyebrows raised slightly. Impressive. Blake tells me your quantum computing club at Westlake has been quite the success. It's been a collaborative effort, Marcus said, glancing at Blake. Everyone brings something valuable to the table. Speaking of collaboration, Rashid interjected smoothly. Gerald, I believe you expressed interest in expanding your company's educational initiatives. The Quantum Bridge program would be an excellent opportunity. Gerald Harrison recognized the subtle pressure for what it was, both a genuine invitation and a chance at redemption. Indeed, Harrison Properties would be honored to participate, perhaps a dedicated facility for the program. As the men discussed details, Blake turned to Marcus. Can I ask you something? Why did you let me join the club after everything I said, after how I treated you? Marcus considered the question carefully. Because excluding you had defeated the purpose. The point isn't to reverse who gets opportunities and who doesn't. It's to make sure everyone has them. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Blake admitted quietly. It's not about deserving, Marcus replied. It's about growth. When people know better, they do better. Most of the time, anyway. Their conversation was interrupted as Zoe arrived with her mother, both dressed elegantly for the occasion. Zoe had been the first person Marcus had invited to the gala after his father agreed to the scholarship program. There's a genius behind it all, Zoe said, hugging Marcus. Your presentation blew everyone away. My mom's colleagues can't stop talking about it. Ms. Martinez extended her hand to Rashid. Your son is remarkable, Mr. Johnson. He's been nothing but kind to Zoe since his first day at Westlake, long before anyone knew who he was. That's who he's always been, Rashid replied proudly. The evening continued, but something fundamental had shifted, not just in how people saw Marcus, but in how Marcus saw himself. The secrecy that had defined so much of his life had given way to a new kind of visibility, one based not on his father's wealth or company, but on his own vision and values. Months later, as the first cohort of Quantum Bridge scholars gathered for their orientation weekend, Marcus stood before 50 students from across the country, young people with brilliant minds who might otherwise never have had the chance to explore their potential in technology. Blake stood beside him, now an enthusiastic volunteer mentor for the program. Their unlikely friendship had become one of the program's most compelling success stories. Proof that change was possible, that perspective could evolve, that bridges could be built. As Marcus welcomed the scholars, he caught his father's eye from the back of the room. The old laptop, the one that had started everything, was displayed in a glass case nearby, a reminder of where they began and how far they'd come. Your backgrounds are different, Marcus told the eager young faces before him. Your schools, your neighborhoods, your experiences. But you're all here for the same reason, because you have minds that see possibilities where others see only problems. He gestured to the mentors lined up behind him, tech leaders, educators, and even some Westlake students, including Zoe. These mentors are here because they believe in you, not because of who your parents are or what kind of computer you own, but because of who you can become and what you might create. As the scholars broke into small groups for their first workshop, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From hiding who he was to embracing it fully. From being judged by appearances to being valued for his mind and heart. From suffering the prejudices of others to helping transform them. The old laptop in its case caught the light, its scratches and worn edges now badges of honor rather than marks of shame. It had never been about the technology itself, Marcus realized. It had always been about what you did with it. The problems you solved, the bridges you built, the world you opened up for others. And that was a lesson worth sharing, no matter where you came from or where you were going.